say the most terrifying things aren't the monsters hiding under your bed, but the ones you willingly invite into your life. For Mark and Sarah, their monster wasn't a creature with claws or fangs. It was an address, 42 Willow Creek Lane. A house so quiet, it felt like a grave. As they stood on the damp, overgrown lawn, Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. The sound was swallowed by the persistent, light rain. "It's bigger than the pictures, Mark, and it feels so isolated." Mark, doing his best to sound like a savvy investor and not a terrified husband, put an arm around her. "Isolated means cheap, honey. And think of the potential. It just needs a little love." The real estate agent had left the key for them. The heavy wooden door groaned open like an old man waking from a long, troubled sleep. The air that rushed out to greet them was cold and heavy, a perpetual winter trapped within the walls. It smelled of dust and something else, something metallic and sharp, like old copper pennies left in a damp jar. A low, almost inaudible hum began to vibrate in the air, a bass note beneath the sound of the rain. Mark, ever the optimist, was already trying to sell the house to himself as much as to Sarah. See? Grand entrance. Beautiful wood paneling, a little dusty, but solid. He ran a hand along the banister, leaving a clean streak in the thick gray film. But Sarah had stopped dead in the middle of the foyer. Her head was cocked to one side. "Do you hear that? It's aum, like a low-frequency radio." Mark waved a dismissive hand. "It's just the old pipes. Honey, this place has been sitting empty for a while." But Sarah wasn't listening. She was drawn to a massive, empty wall in the living room, a long expanse of blank, off-white plaster. "The wall is cold, Mark. Colder than the rest of the room." She hesitated for a moment, then pressed her ear against the cold surface. For just a second, a faint, choked whisper, utterly unintelligible, seemed to hiss back at her from within the wall. She recoiled, shaking her head as if to clear it. Let's check out the basement." She rushed to follow Mark, who was already descending the creaky wooden stairs. The basement was a damp, forgotten space, smelling of earth and decay. But one object immediately drew their attention. Leaning against a stone wall was a single, dusty oil painting. It was a portrait of a man in his late 40s, dressed in a simple, old-fashioned suit. He was smiling, but his eyes had been viciously painted over with thick, violent strokes of black paint, completely obscuring them. "That's disturbing," Sarah murmured, a shiver running down her spine. Mark, intrigued, picked up the heavy canvas. As he lifted it, a small, yellowed newspaper clipping fluttered out from behind the frame and landed at his feet. He bent down and picked it up, squinting to read the faded print. He read the headline aloud, his voice echoing in the small, damp space. "Local architect Elias Vance disappears without a trace. Police suspect foul play. Last seen at his home, 42 Willow Creek Lane." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the basement's cold. Elias Vance, the man who had designed and built this very house, vanished from within its walls, maybe only 20 years ago. The smiling man in the painting. Suddenly, Mark's entire demeanor shifted. He carefully placed the painting back against the wall, but a strange light had entered his eyes. "You know what? This is kinda creepy." He laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Let's call the realtor and make an offer before someone else snaps it up. This house has good bones, Sarah. Really good bones." His sudden, unsettling enthusiasm was jarring. It felt wrong, forced. He clapped his hands together and bounded back up the stairs, pulling out his phone. "I'll make the call right now." Sarah was left alone in the gloom. The low hum seemed louder now, a constant pressure building behind her ear. Her eyes scanned the dusty shelves lining the basement wall. Tucked away behind some old paint cans, she saw the spine of a leather-bound book. An old journal. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it from its hiding place and flipped it open. The pages were brittle, the handwriting a frantic, spidery scrawl. Her eyes landed on a recent entry. August 14th, she read aloud to herself. The architect is angry. He says the walls are too thin, too much noise from the neighbors. Too many eyes, I tried to tell him. ... He's seeing things, but I heard it today. The walls, they whisper when he's not looking. They are hungry. A distinct sound from the floor above made her jump. A slow, heavy, dragging sound. "Mark?" She called out, her voice tight with rising panic. Only silence answered, her heart hammering against her ribs. She turned her eyes back to the journal, to the very last entry, August 16th. I pinned it over his eyes. It was the only way to silence him. But now, the house is silent too. And it's waiting for the new noise. It's waiting for us. The dragging sound repeated, closer this time, directly overhead. It was followed by a loud, wet thud. Sarah dropped the journal. She scrambled up the stairs, her breath catching her throat. She found Mark in the living room. He was standing perfectly still, staring intently at that same cold, blank wall. In his hand, he held a rusty, old hammer he must have found in the basement. "Mark, what are you doing?" "Put the hammer down," she pleaded, her voice shaking. He turned around slowly. His eyes were wide, but they were completely empty, devoid of all emotion. And he wore a hollow, perfect smile, the exact same chilling smile from the defaced portrait of the vanished architect. "They're too loud, Sarah," he said, his voice utterly flat and monotone. "Oh, their happy chatter. Their thoughts are too bright." Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes. "Who are you talking about?" "Mark! We need to leave!" "Now!" she screamed. "Leave," he replied, and his voice shifted, becoming a perfect, sickening imitation of his earlier, fake cheerfulness. "But we just got here. Elian din." And the hammer raised just slightly. His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "He needs silence, Sarah. The walls are hungry for the quiet." A faint, choked plea. The ghosts of a whisper seemed to emanate from somewhere near him, from the wall itself. And in that horrifying moment, Sarah saw the truth. Mark hadn't just liked the house. The house had liked him. It had chosen him, and the wall, cold and silent, was waiting for its next occupant, the next person to be silenced. Mark took one slow, deliberate step toward her. A sudden, jarring metallic clang echoed through the empty house. It was followed by Sarah's single, sharp, immediate scream, a sound that was cut off as quickly as it began, and then silence. Only the slow, steady drip, drip, drip of a leaky pipe in the basement, and the oppressive, now high-pitched hum remained. 10 minutes later, the realtor arrived, a hopeful smile on his face. He found the front door ajar. He stepped inside, noting how a fresh coat of dust was already beginning to settle over everything. The house was strangely quiet, perfectly, completely quiet. He smiled to himself. He knew, just like the previous owners, this was a perfect, affordable buy. A real steal. All it needed was a new listing, and maybe a fresh layer of plaster over the cold, hungry wall. He pulled the heavy doors shut, and the last of the light, and the last of the sound. When he said from 42 Willow Creek Lane, like, subscribe, and join us on this journey.